So you wrote recently in Foreign Policy that the Arab moment has passed. What did you mean by it?
Well, I meant that the Arabs are not really deciding the geostrategy of the region. They're not the strongest players right now. After the U.S. invasion of Iraq and the events of the Arab Spring, the bigger players like Iraq, Syria, Egypt lost their footing. They've collapsed. The smaller players like Saudi Arabia and UAE are not capable of carrying a significant military diplomatic weight in the region. Saudi Arabia could not or finish off the war in Yemen. So they are heavily reliant on the United States in order to stay in the game. But the way in which we used to look at the Arabs as being the center of gravity of the region, deciding its, the power balance in the region, and then everybody else was around them, is no longer the case. They're actually subject to other people's rivalries. And Israel, Turkey, and Iran each are trying to eat up parts of it. And so we're in a different game. And I have a feeling that the thinking in Washington and in the West generally is still stuck in a period where the Arabs were the center of the Middle East.
Certainly, historically, the United States has been pretty comfortable with an Arab-heavy Middle East in the sense that for the last few decades anyway, the U.S. relations have been reasonably strong. Do you think that this new period geopolitically is going to be considerably more destabilizing as a consequence?
Yes, it could be, because you actually have a massive Arab territory that is up for grabs, and the Arabs themselves are not capable of laying claim to it. So look at Syria. The Saudis, UAE, Qatar, pretty much packed up. The countries that matter in Syria are Israel, Russia, Iran, and Turkey. Even in Libya, it's now increasingly becoming Turkey versus Russia. And everywhere they're complaining about Iran, and then they're complaining about Turkey. So the suggestion is that the Arabs themselves cannot actually protect the territories that are broken up. And these outsiders are engaged in a scramble for Arab lands. And so that scramble is going to create more and more instability. We're seeing, Israel and Iran going at it in Syria, daily, sometimes weekly bombings by Israelis over Iranian positions. We're seeing Iran and Turkey getting into loggerheads in the Caucasus, in Syria, and now most recently in Iraq. And we're seeing, Israel and Turkey also, not on the best of terms when it comes to division of power in the Mediterranean. So if this kind of a rivalry goes unchecked, while the United States think it's all about Iran, we're going to end up seeing instability in places that we don't expect.
Does the United States think it's all about Iran, or does the United States increasingly just think it's not all about the Middle East?
Well, the United States is thinking it's not all about the Middle East. In fact, now this is the third president in a row who basically says we are overspending on the Middle East, diplomatically, financially, militarily. Our attention should be in China. And, President Obama had a strategy, which was you cut a nuclear deal with Iran, which was the most likely reason we would have stayed in the Middle East with another war, in order to pivot to Asia. And clearly, President Biden cannot afford to stay in the Middle East. We have too many other things domestically and with China to be focused on the Middle East. But in order to leave the Middle East, the United States has to find ways to reduce tensions in the Middle East. And so there are two ways of doing it. Either you say we're going to get out of the way and let the Iranians, Turks, and Israelis sort it out. Doesn't matter what's going to happen. Or that you have to try to find a way to reduce this degree of competition. And you have to arrive at some kind of a balance of power politics between these four components here.